Winter in northern Canada was not just cold, it was absolute. The forest seemed frozen in time. The tall trees, covered in snow, formed white columns beneath an endless gray sky. No birds, no insects, no sound, except the wind. Helena no longer counted the years since she began living alone in that cabin. Time there was not measured by calendars, but by winters, and that winter was different. The silence was not peaceful. It was heavy. It was a kind of silence that comes before something bad. Inside the small wooden cabin, the fire crackled low in the fireplace. Helena sat in an old chair, wrapped in a thick wool shawl. Her hands held a mug of tea that had already gone cold. She did not drink. She listened. Since that night, 12 years ago, she had always listened. Daniel had gone out to gather firewood. That was all. The pile outside was running low, and he had insisted he would be back quickly, but he never returned. The search lasted for days. The only thing found were footprints, large, deep, solitary, from an alpha wolf. Since then, Helena did not hate the winter. She hated the howl, and that night, the wind began to sound like one. The first scratch was so light that she thought she had imagined it, but the second left no doubt. It was heavy, intentional. Helena stood up slowly. The chair creaking sounded far too loud. She walked to the wall and removed the old rifle from its rack. Her hands did not tremble. Trembling was for those who were afraid. She had something else. Memory. The scratching came again, stronger. Then something unexpected. A low sound. A whimper. It was not aggressive. It was pained. Helena moved closer to the small side window and pulled the curtain back just enough to look. And there it was, enormous, a black she-wolf, larger than any she had ever seen. Its fur was covered in snow, its flanks rising and falling far too quickly. But it wasn't the size that made her freeze. It was the paw. A steel wire crushed the hind leg. The flesh was open. Blood stained the white snow around it. And then she saw the swollen belly. Pregnant. The wolf's eyes slowly lifted to meet hers. There was no rage. There was pain, and something that looked like a plea. Helena felt something break inside her. She could close the window. She could ignore it. The forest would take care of it. But the wolf tried to stand and fell. And that sound, that whimper, was not a predator's. It was a mother's. Helena opened the door. The wind came in like an icy blade. "If you try anything," she murmured, holding the rifle. The wolf did not advance. It could barely move. Helena dropped the rifle onto the ground. She approached slowly. Each step felt like crossing 12 years of hatred. She knelt in the snow. The metal was deeply embedded in the flesh. She ran back inside the cabin and grabbed her husband's old pliers. When she returned, the wolf was motionless, but its eyes followed her every movement. "This is going to hurt." The metal resisted. Helena pulled. The wolf growled low, but did not bite. More force. The wire gave way with a sharp snap. The wolf collapsed onto its side, exhausted. Helena was breathing hard. She slid her arm beneath the animal's heavy torso. "Come on, get up." With absurd effort, she dragged the wolf inside the cabin. She locked the door, and then the sky exploded with wind. The storm was beginning. Hours passed. Helena cleaned the wound with hot water. She stitched it as best she could, wrapped the paw in cloth. The wolf did not attempt to attack once. It only watched. The storm intensified. Then the ground vibrated, a distant sound, like continuous thunder. Helena went to the window and saw it, orange on the horizon, fire. In the middle of winter, the wind was far too strong. Some dry tree had likely been struck by lightning, perhaps days earlier. Now the wind fed the flames, and the wind was blowing toward the cabin. "No, it can't be." She looked at the wolf and realized the contractions. The animal's body tensed rhythmically. Labor had begun. Helena closed her eyes for a second. Of course it had to be now. The cabin would not survive the fire. She needed to leave. But she would not abandon the she-wolf. Not this time. Behind the cabin, there was something Helena had avoided for years. An underground shelter her husband had built as an emergency plan. They had never needed to use it. After Daniel's death, she had never set foot there again. But now there was no choice. Helena grabbed the old sled. With tremendous effort, she pulled the she-wolf outside. The sky was red. The air smelled of smoke. The snow looked dirty. She dragged the animal to the entrance of the shelter, a hatch almost invisible beneath the accumulated snow. She pushed it open, climbed down. The shelter was cramped, but protected by earth and thick logs. She sealed the entrance with wood and packed snow. The world went dark and far too warm. The flames were close. The she-wolf cried out. The first pup was born minutes later. Small, black, fragile. Helena held it with steady hands. The second came soon after. The third took longer, much longer. The fire roared above them. The ceiling vibrated. Breathe, Helena murmured, even knowing the animal did not understand the words. But it understood the tone. When the third pup finally emerged, it was motionless. Silence. Helena rubbed the tiny body. Nothing. Harder. No, don't do this. She blew gently into the small muzzle. Seconds that felt eternal. And then, a small spasm, a breath, a weak cry. Helena let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. The she-wolf lifted her head and looked at her, and there was no longer distrust there. There was gratitude. The heat passed over the shelter, but did not penetrate. The improvised ventilation system still worked. The earth held back the worst of it. Inside that small underground space, something impossible was happening. Helena held one of the pups against her chest, warming it. The she-wolf allowed it. The three small lives huddled between them. The fire above burned trees. But down there, something different was being born. Not only pups, but forgiveness. Hours later, silence returned. The worst had passed. When Helena opened the hatch at dawn, the air was heavy. Half the forest was black. The cabin no longer existed. Only smoldering ashes. Everything she had, photos, letters, clothes, memories, reduced to dust. She did not cry. There were not enough tears for two griefs. Behind her, light steps in the snow. The she-wolf emerged from the shelter, limping slightly. The pups stumbled behind her. Helena spoke without turning. You're free. The wolf could leave. The forest still existed, even burned. The animal took a few steps, stopped, turned, walked to Helena, pressed her body against hers. Not like a predator, but like an equal. Helena breathed deeply. For the first time in 12 years, the weight inside her chest lessened. Maybe it had not been that wolf. Maybe the alpha from years ago was already dead. Maybe hatred had been a false shelter. Maybe the forest had not taken everything. Maybe it had given something back. The pups played in the ash-stained snow. The sun began to break over the horizon. Helena had no home, no past, but she was no longer alone. The following days were about rebuilding. Helena improvised a temporary cover with logs and the scorched tarp that remained. The she-wolf stayed. She hunted, returned, always returned. The pups grew quickly. One of them, the smallest, the one who had barely breathed, seemed especially attached to Helena. He followed her, sat beside her when she worked, watched her every movement. The forest slowly began to show signs of life. Small sprouts emerged beneath the ashes. Helena did too. She began to smile again. Small, almost imperceptible, but real. One morning, as the sun rose strongly for the first time after the fire, Helena realized something. She did not think of Daniel with pain. She thought with longing and gratitude, because if it hadn't been for that loss, perhaps she would never have opened the door that night. The she-wolf approached, sat beside her. The three pups were now strong enough to explore the edge of the burned forest. Helena gently touched the mother's black fur. "Family isn't blood," she murmured. The wolf closed her eyes for a moment, as if she understood. The wind blew softly, different from that night. It was not a threat. It was a promise. And there, in the middle of the forest ashes, a woman who swore she hated wolves discovered that forgiveness sometimes arrives in the form we fear most. And that sometimes, the sound at the door is not the end. It is a beginning. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful and emotional stories like this to life. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter.